Let's go back to the year 2012. I graduated from high school, this monstrosity was released, and a guy named Brad Foxhaven, a producer at Blockade Entertainment, announced that they were working with Sony to create animated films based on PlayStation properties. Among those announced were Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, and Heavenly Sword, because when I think of PlayStation's biggest franchises, I think Heavenly Sword. Each movie got a trailer showing off the film's style, with Sly Cooper and Ratchet and Clank being scheduled for release in 2016. Heavenly Sword was the first of the batch to be released in 2014, and it was, very rough? The film reused a lot of assets from the PS3 game, so it immediately looked dated using models that didn't even look the best in 2007. 2 years later, Ratchet and Clank was released in theaters and was a box office bomb that received negative reviews upon release. I even reviewed it back when it was released for a summer movie marathon, and I still stand by that I don't fully understand all the hate that it received. But with both movies failing, they seem to have silently canceled the last of these projects. The only public view we have of the Sly Cooper film is that original teaser trailer that was released back in 2014. Unlike Heavenly Sword and Ratchet and Clank, the film seemed like it was going to take a drastically different approach in style than the games did, and it's those differences that made me more interested in this project than the others. Rainmaker said they moved away from the cel-shaded look of the games because it isn't something that would translate well to film, and I see where they're coming from. I actually really enjoy how these characters look in the trailer. The character designs are this blend of a realistic aesthetic with over-the-top Looney Tunes style, and oddly enough, it really works. Sly in the games always had this smug attitude to him, and this model really nails that attitude. The hat hides even more of his face than it does in the games, giving him a much more mysterious edge. Bentley's model also translates his character really well into this new design. We never actually see his eyes in any of the games, with the glasses being squatched and stretched in conjunction with his eyebrows to show off his emotion. To keep the more realistic aesthetic, they gave him gigantic buggy eyes that more or less serve the same kind of purpose. It leans much further into the dorky side of the character, which is something that this incarnation is definitely going for. The only one I'm not a fan of is Murray. He always was the biggest one of the group, but he was also the muscle. I feel like they focus too much on his weight rather than his brawn, and comes off as a design that doesn't really feel like Murray to me. Bentley and Murray also retain the voice actors from the games, which is a great decision PlayStation made to help the audiences embrace these newer versions of the characters, but I am baffled why they decided to recast Sly Cooper of all people. Kevin Miller's performance is half of what makes Sly such an amazing character. His cool demeanor helps us see Sly as this master thief. He always has this calm attitude to everything happening around him. Even if it is a bluff, he always comes off as confident, seeming like he's always in control of the situation.
I've faced a lot of bad men in my time, but you, sir, are the worst.
I don't get that from this performance of Sly. It seems more like somebody trying to do a Sly Cooper impression. He sounds more cocky than confident, and crossing that thin line changes a lot about how the character handles situations. Regardless of that, the animation shown off in this teaser is magical. Sly Cooper always had this very stiff look to its animation during dialogue scenes, but was always very fluid during gameplay. It created this interesting dichotomy between gameplay and story, making you really listen to what the characters are saying. It looks super cheap, but the fact that it tells such a compelling story despite the budgetary drawbacks adds to the charm and aesthetic of the game. This trailer shows a very similar attention to that detail, but done in a way that gives the animation its own style. Just look at Sly's movements throughout the trailer. Every move he performs is animated so fluidly, only to give a brief pause in between actions before starting the next movement. Even Bentley's animated like this, with his movements being quick and snappy between actions. All in all, I really enjoy this art style and animation, and I am sad that this project is dead in the water. After the failure of Ratchet and Clank, Rainmaker Studios left the project, so this trailer is the only footage we have of the film. There is very little that we do know about what the movie was supposed to be. David Wohl, a producer on the project, was quoted saying that Sly and the gang are already together, though they are far from being so great at what they do. It was also confirmed that this wouldn't be an origin story for the character, and that fan favorites Carmelita and Clockwork would be in the movie as well. The only look at the plot that we do have pretty much just describes the story from the game itself in a simplified format, similarly to how Ratchet and Clank was pitched. So for this video, I want to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. Rather than critique and review what is presented in front of me, I want to speculate about what the Sly Cooper movie we never got could have been. Again, there is no basis that this is what the film was going to be, and I don't have any insider knowledge. This is just what I think it would have been like given what little information we have and how the other PlayStation movies were handled. The two projects that came out during this time were both retellings of their original story, done with some tweaks to adapt the story for the film, as well as updating the characters to be more in line with their more modern portrayals. In the original Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet is an asshole. He's on the adventure not to save the galaxy, but to explore it. He doesn't want to be a hero, he wants to be famous. this. But as the series continues, we see Ratchet grow with each game and taking up the mantle of hero. But in the movie, we get this younger version of Ratchet wanting to be a hero and impress Captain Quark. So I assume that something similar would be done with the treatment of Sly in the movie. Sly in the first game does some smooth talking, but he is out for revenge first and foremost. Rather than trying to avoid fights, he likes to piss off his father's murderers. He wants to humiliate them on top of ruining all their plans.
Listen, Raleigh, wipe up my family and steal what's mine? You better expect company.
While he is quick and nimble, he prefers to fight rather than sneak around situations. Vengeance is the #1 thing on his mind. His actions in the first game come off as more inexperienced than future games. But as the series progressed, we get a much more mature Sly. He learned from Clockwork what hate can do to someone and instead leaves it behind. He is a thief, not because of his legacy, but because it's something he enjoys, and he knows he's good at it. It goes in line with the gameplay shift by making him a character focused on stealth in the sequels. He's a lot smoother and always acts in control of the situation, at least until someone calls his bluff. And this is the part of Sly's personality that people know a lot better than the cold-blooded film noir stuff. And judging by the glimpse of his personality we got in the trailer, I think that's also what they were going for, but keeping the inexperience of the first game central to his character. Bentley and Murray seem like they also have the same idea going on for their characters as well, pulling more from their personalities later in the series and mixing it with their original portrayal. Bentley was uncomfortable with being in the field at the beginning of Sly 2.
Its impact will shake the nightclub's front peacock sign loose from its mooring. Look, I can't talk now, I've gotta keep moving, keep safe!
He was nervous about everything and gave himself less missions until later in the game where it became second nature to him. But in this movie, he seems fine being in the field, basing his look on the gear from Sly 2. In fact, most of Bentley's portrayal seems to be in line with the character from the second game. In the first game, Bentley always felt like they were in control or could salvage the mission, even if stuff wasn't going 100% according to plan. But in Sly 2, if even one thing deviated from what he had planned, he would be freaking out, relying on Sly or Murray to fix what went wrong. And that is what this trailer is showing off. Murray is down for the count, Bentley's freaking out, asking Sly to fix the problem. When it comes to Murray's character, he seems more confused. In the first game, Murray is this lovable doofus. Almost everything would happen to him by accident. He would get scared of the smallest things, and he just acted like the little brother of the group. But come Sly 2, he gained the confidence through his adventures and adopts the moniker, The Murray. Judging by how he's dressed in the trailer, it seems like the movie wants him already established as The Murray. But looking at how the pain he was in was caused by him being hungry, rather than the more mature version we get in the later games, it seems like he was going to be just as much of an idiot as he was in that first game. So now that we know how our leads would be portrayed, we need to know how to handle the other two characters that were mentioned, Carmelita and Clockwork. So let's start with our menacing bird. I think the story of the film would have been the same basic plot of the video games, but told in a way that is more compatible with the usual structure seen in films versus video games. So I don't think you can have Clockwork without the Fiendish Five. Despite being a part of the same villainous group, the Fiendish Five don't feel like they have any connection to each other. They all have their own separate agendas, and the only thing connecting them is the murder of Sly's family. Sly 2 had the Claw Gang working together, with each member contributing something to one grand master plan. And since each of the members of the Cooper Gang would be in the field, I could see the members of the Fiendish Five being used as rivals for them. Each one of the Fiendish Five were said to have their own roles to play in the gang. Clockwork was the leader, Buckshot was the enforcer, Ms. Ruby was the chief mystic, Riley was the chief machinist, and the Panda King was the demolitions expert. Some of these characters can parallel a member of the Cooper Gang in some way. Bentley being the brains has a rival in Riley, and Murray being the muscle has a rival in Panda King and his Flame Fu. Sly can be pit against any of them due to his history with the gang. So that covers Clockwork's inclusion of the story. The other piece of the puzzle is Carmelita. When Carmelita is introduced in the first mission of the game, you can tell through their dialogue that this isn't the first time they've crossed paths.
Ah, Carmelita. I haven't seen you since I gave you the slip in Bombay.
Which reminds me, you need to return the Firestone of India to its rightful owners.
It was a quick and simple way of giving the level designers an excuse to have a Carmelita level in every world, and how she would always show up to arrest the villain at the end of the chapter. But for a movie, I think it would just lead to confusion from the audience. So I think rather than having a fixation on Sly, I think she should actually be trying to bring down the Fiendish Five instead. A cop tailing a criminal organization, trying to figure out what they're planning, coming up with comprehensive dossiers on each of them, which is how she gets introduced to Sly, who needs information on the gang's members to know what they're dealing with. It would be an excuse to have Carmelita more personally involved in the story of the film, as well as beginning the chemistry between Sly and Carmelita. So even an audience who doesn't have a history with the franchise can get involved. So now that all of the major players have been set, let's dive into the story of the Sly Cooper movie that could have been. It's a dark night in Paris. A silhouetted figure holding a cane is running along the rooftops of the police HQ. He gets on the roof and drops down to the skylight, stealthily avoiding police all over the office. While most are oblivious, one notices something is off. The figure reaches a red door that says Inspector Carmelita Fox. He gets into the room and walks into the light, and we see him. Sly Cooper. A thief making a name for himself by stealing from the criminals and the corrupt in Paris, but someone no one has ever actually seen. Bentley is in his ear, telling him to be careful, worried about the situation at hand. He gathers information from around the room of what the inspector's already discovered and finds a case file for the Fiendish Five. As he leaves the famous Cooper insignia, the door slams open. "It's you, the raccoon thief," says Carmelita, pursuing the sneaky thief around the office. Sly listens to Bentley in his ear, directing him by looking through security cameras and doing his best to hack what he can to distract the cops. Sly makes it to the van, with Murray at the wheel. As they make their getaway, we hear Carmelita saying her famous catchphrase.
"I'll find you, Cooper!"
With the Fiendish Five case file in hand, we learn about our lead's backstory. He was born to a family of master thieves, with their family history being recorded onto a single book, the Thievius Raccoonus. On the day he was supposed to inherit the book, a group known as the Fiendish Five murdered his father and stole the book, with Sly opening the closet door he was hiding in and making eye contact with the one that delivered the final blow, a shadowy figure with a piercing stare and yellow eyes. Sly eventually ends up in an orphanage where he meets Bentley and Murray, and together the three of them form the Cooper Gang. With that, the opening title sequence starts with an art style that mirrors the cutscenes in the games, showing our leads growing up, pulling off more and more daring heists as they mature. It is now where our heroes look at the intel they've gathered and learn about the Fiendish Five. They have been off the grid for several years, very rarely making public appearances, which is why Interpol was having difficulties finding them, with mysterious robberies happening all over the world for plutonium. The only member that has been seen in public is Mugshot, running hotels and casinos all over Mesa City. The gang goes to Mesa to see if Mugshot could lead them to the other members of the Fiendish Five. The gang enters the casino to do some recon. The casino and hotels are covered in crystals from volcanic rocks for decoration. They discover that Mugshot has been away on business and is returning the next day for a special auction hosted at his hotel that would drive a lot of money into his pockets. And with all the information they need, the gang makes their plan. Sly and Bentley would break into the security office to take control of the hotel's defenses and find a central server, while Murray would pose as a patron in hopes of meeting face to face with Mugshot by bidding on the auction item. Once with Mugshot, he'd keep him distracted to give Sly and Bentley enough time to hack the server and steal the item from under Mugshot's nose, with Bentley calling the plan Operation Mad Dog. This scene could also be done in the classic Cooper comic book style, similarly to the opening credits, as a way to convey the plan to the audience in a unique way. We then cut to the hideout of the Fiendish Five, where we see Riley freaking out, rushing into Clockwork's office. At the top of his lungs, he keeps screaming, "It's gone! It's gone!" Clockwork checks the security logs to see who has entered and exited the base, where they realize Mugshot took the one thing they needed most for their plan. The gang's operation starts off without a hitch. Sly and Bentley get into security, and Murray comically plays up being a big shot at the party. When the auction starts, the item is revealed to be the Thievius Raccoonus itself. Sly is bewildered, but Bentley assures that they have to stick to the original plan. Being the cocky one, Sly breaks away and trades spots with Murray. Bentley presses on with his original plan and goes on to the central server room, meeting up with Murray along the way. Sly wins the bid and meets with Mugshot not recognizing who he is. Before entering the back room, an undercover Carmelita Fox notices Cooper. Sly and Mugshot exchange words, with tension building as Bentley and Murray hack their way through data and discover that Mugshot has been traveling to Russia near Krakarov Volcano. Bentley and Murray get discovered by the guards and trip an alarm, alerting Mugshot of intruders and confirming Carmelita's suspicions. Carmelita breaks in, holding Sly and Mugshot at gunpoint, and that is when Mugshot realizes who Sly is. In the confusion, Sly trips Mugshot with his cane and steals the book, managing to make his escape through a window and onto rooftops. The Cooper gang all meet in the van and just barely outwit the police and get away. We see the escape happen as the camera pulls out, revealing the Fiendish Five watching the whole ordeal through a crystal ball being overseen by Ms. Ruby. Clockwork is angry, baffled that Mugshot would try and sell the book. Riley mentions how much the casino was failing, so it's probably a desperate attempt to raise cash. Clockwork asks Riley how long it would take to finish the project without the plans in the book, and Riley assures him that he has everything he needs to complete it. As Sly and Murray celebrate their escape, Bentley is furious. The mood in the van immediately changes as Bentley vents his frustrations that Sly didn't stick to the plan. Sly tries to explain that it was his family's heirloom and he had to be the one to confront Mugshot, but Bentley assured that part of the plan was already to steal the item up for auction, so he would have gotten the book back anyway. The tension escalates between Sly and Bentley as Murray just looks sad watching his two best friends fight. Sly asserts that now that he has the Thievius Raccoonus, he doesn't need his gang to take down the Fiendish Five, breaking Bentley and Murray's hearts. Sly angrily leaves the van, leaving everyone sad. We then cut to Carmelita, who is arresting Mugshot. She's seen going through security footage and notices Bentley and Murray accessing the server. She then tells the people handling the evidence to get her a copy of the files that were accessed. Later that night, we see Sly on a rooftop practicing moves from the Thievius Raccoonus. He's amazed at what his ancestors could accomplish and starts looking more into the book. He sees pictures and drawings of his ancestors, each one with their own gang, ending with a picture of Sly and his father with McSweeney and Dr. M, making Sly realize how important his gang is to him. He also starts noticing an owly figure in the background of all the images, confused at what it could be. We then cut back to see how Bentley and Murray are handling the situation, with Bentley pissed off and Murray just feeling upset. They get ready to drive away, only to be arrested by Carmelita, who tracked down the van. Sly, on his way back to apologize, notices this from the rooftop and watches as his best friends get arrested by Interpol. In the jail cell, Bentley reflects on how it's all Sly's fault that they're in prison, even being mad that he wasn't there to get arrested with them. Murray holds out hope, saying that Sly will be back to break them out, much to Bentley's chagrin. Murray says even though they aren't Coopers, they're still Sly's family, and he believes in his friendship with Sly enough to know that they wouldn't be abandoned. And Sly proves Murray right by falling through the vents ready to free them. Sly and Bentley have a touching scene making up, and the gang make their getaway. Sly comments on the lack of guards around the HQ, and Bentley reveals that using the information they took from Mugshot, Interpol is staging a raid in a warehouse in Russia. Bentley then tells them that the casinos were filled with volcanic crystals, theorizing that the actual base of the Fiendish Five isn't the warehouse, but rather the volcano itself. We then see how the Interpol raid on the warehouse is going, only for them to discover that it's a trap where the Panda King is setting off explosives burying the warehouse in snow. Carmelita barely escapes, but gets overwhelmed by the Panda King and kidnapped. The Cooper gang makes their way to Cracker Off Volcano, only to be confronted by various traps themed around the remaining members of the Fiendish Five. The gang is confronted by the Panda King, with Murray staying behind to fight him one-on-one as Sly and Bentley sneak past in the chaos. Riley notices through the security cameras and sends word back to Clockwork that Cooper is there. Clockwork tells Riley that it's time to commence the plan, while Riley worms that their new machine isn't 100% complete. Clockwork knows this, but assures that what they have is enough. Sly and Bentley continue through the base and notice Carmelita trapped in a cage. Sly says that they have to rescue her, with Bentley saying that it wasn't part of the plan and that she's the one that arrested them to begin with. Sly assures Bentley that Carmelita isn't a monster and actually is a good person. Bentley reluctantly agrees to help Sly, starting a hack into the security systems to clear a path for Sly. Riley notices and starts a counter hack against Bentley. As a fun little reference to the games as well, this can be presented as a similar arcadey shooter to the hacking mission seen in game. When Sly gets close to the cage, he's confronted by Ms. Ruby, who is excited to see if Sly is as good of a thief as the rest of his family. Ms. Ruby starts conjuring up ghosts from the past, all of whom are based on Sly's various ancestors. They start to fight him, and Sly starts to become overwhelmed by all of his ancestors. At the same time, Bentley realizes that Riley's trying to overload his computer to cause it to blow up, and Murray seems like he's about to lose his fight with the Panda King. Murray then gains the upper hand and wins his struggle with the Panda King, and makes his way to Sly and Bentley. Bentley manages to find and exploit a loophole in the code, which allows him to lock Riley out of all of the main systems. Murray meets up with Bentley and they run towards Sly. Ms. Ruby taunts Sly for being so weak compared to his ancestors, but he assures her that the thing that makes him strong is his friends. Murray throws Bentley's shell at Ms. Ruby, distracting the ghosts and giving Sly the upper hand in outmaneuvering them, taking them out with the help of his friends. He thanks Bentley and Murray and they all free Carmelita. Carmelita informs them of the Fiendish Five's plan, to give Clockwork a newer, stronger body. They make their way into the center of the volcano and enter a dark void. In the darkness, they hear a voice taunting them. Sly immediately recognizes it. The darkness becomes illuminated by yellow, piercing eyes, which Sly remembers from the day his father was murdered. The lights turn on and we see an even larger but incomplete version of Clockwork. If this whole giant Clockwork and switching bodies subplot seems out of place, I'm basing this on the Death Ray from the original game, which looks like a giant incomplete version of the character. Anyway, the gang starts their fight with Clockwork. Riley takes manual control of the death ray and starts to fire it at them, disintegrating what it hits it with one touch. Sly and Carmelita focus on fighting Clockwork, each wearing jetpacks to enhance their movements. Bentley asks Murray to throw him up to where Riley's controlling the death beam. Once up there, Bentley starts to fight Riley hand to hand and is at a noticeable disadvantage. Bentley is scared because he has never been in a fight before. Murray is in his ear, talking him through his fear, literally walking him through the fight until he wins. He starts a hack which sets the death ray to self-destruct. Meanwhile, Sly and Carmelita work together to take down Clockwork. Clockwork taunts Sly by saying it was him who killed all of the Coopers, and Sly cockily says how his biggest failure will be not knowing that Connor Cooper had a son. Clockwork then takes control of the fight, revealing that he always knew that Sly Cooper was alive. He wanted to prove to the world that the Coopers were nothing without their family book, and by wiping out the last one, he will prove it. His master plan was to use the information in the Thievius Raccoonus to commit heinous crimes, using the techniques and technologies of his ancestors to forever tarnish the Cooper name and make society hate him, with that hate being used to keep Clockwork immortal. Each of the members of the Fiendish Five use parts of the book to enhance their own works and abilities. Bentley then uses the death ray on Clockwork's wing, with the death ray exploding as a result of the self-destruct that Bentley caused, with Bentley barely making it out. The explosion causes the entire base to start caving in, and the debris knocks Sly down to the lava near the damaged Clockwork. Clockwork and Sly have one last confrontation, with Sly stating that he never needed the book to beat Clockwork, just some help from the ones he loves. Sly wins in the end, showing that love is much stronger than hatred. As the lava rises, Sly is ready to accept that he will be the last of the Cooper line, taking down the curse that has plagued his family along with him. As he accepts his fate, he is saved by Carmelita and her jetpack, and the gang manages to escape in the van, which is full with the knocked out and handcuffed members of the Fiendish Five. When they get out of the volcano, Sly reflects on everything that he's accomplished and the family that helped him do it. But Carmelita takes out her shock pistol and her handcuffs and is ready to arrest them all. After some flirty banter, Carmelita offers Sly a 10-second head start for helping her arrest the Fiendish Five. She starts to get closer to Sly as she counts down from 10, with Sly not moving an inch. At the end of the countdown, he kisses her, which leaves her confused yet happy, only to realize Sly handcuffed her to a nearby railing with the rest of the Fiendish Five next to her. The gang drives away as we hear the same line from the opening of the movie.
I'll find you, Cooper!
Boom. Roll credits. And this is what I think we would have gotten in the Sly movie, accomplishing the goals I think PlayStation set out for it. A reimagining of the original story made for a more general audience. But now I want to know, what do you think the movie should have had? Would you have done it differently than how I laid it out? Let me know down below or join my Discord so we can discuss this theoretical movie. If you like what I had to say, then please click this playlist to see my opinions on movies and other video games that actually got a release. And why not subscribe so you know whenever I post a new video? Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.